But I said, well, if you look at a business, actually, you don't want to be stabilizing a system. You want to be unstabilizing a system because you want to grow, right? Grow is not stabilizing.
Professor Edison Tse, nice to have you here on 20-Minute Leaders.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to talk to you here. Yeah.
Thank you. So I've had the unique pleasure of being in your class, most recently at Stanford, the Masters in Management and Engineering, MSND 274, and you're a world expert on product management, thinking strategically about entrepreneurial strategy, the inventor of the grabber-holder dynamics strategy. And I'd love to spend these next 20 minutes you sort of picking your brain and trying to consolidate some of what we've learned over the past 10 weeks. It's going to be an impossible feat, but we'll try as much as we can. So can you just start telling me a little bit about yourself? How did you even get to this, incredible industry?
Okay. Well, starting a little bit myself, I'm actually, my training is electrical engineering. So I got a Ph.D. in electrical engineering from MIT. So my area is actually in system and control, and I've been doing a lot of work in there and get some awards and things like that. But I'm sort of interested in something, when I do the system and control, they're all man-made, right? System, things like that.
Right.
But I'm interested in system where you have a lot of human, a lot of people, right? So I start to work in the industry for many years, and then start coming back to Stanford, but going not to the electrical engineering department, but going into beginning is the engineering economic systems, where we're looking at systems, can be human system, can be, it's a combination of human system and the engineering system. So we believe that it's the interaction of all the systems that make into it. And I'm also interested in some of the economics aspect of it. So that's how I get started, and do some work in, for example, managing fisheries and some of the natural resources and things like that. But I guess interested in business because I got, my ex-boss, asked me to join his company. We started a company, but I was a faculty member. So I say I can't join the company.
You were already, where were you a faculty member at Stanford?
Yeah, I was a faculty at Stanford. And so I said, I would not be able to join the company. But he said, well, you don't have to join the company. I mean, he said, well, you can be a consultant, right? And so to be a consultant, to be a co-founder as a consultant, I say, well, that's an interesting role. So I get into it. So we built a company, which is in the very beginning, it's actually an old company. In the first wave of AI, we're doing some of the work in there, okay? So it's more technology driven, and we do a lot of technology work and things like that. But I because I played a role as not only a consultant, I was on the board. So I got start understanding on what's happening in the business world.
The dynamics of an entrepreneur.
So that I get interested in the entrepreneurship part of it. So I was doing, and then I come back to Stanford, and then I still want to continue doing work at Stanford. So I start my interest has shifted because of that, from a little bit of economics and go into the business world, and that's how I get started. Okay, and in the very beginning, my research is more on the system part, for sort of looking at business as an overall system.
Interesting.
Right? So thinking from the system point of view, how the system point of view looking from the business organization, right? You can think of system organization as really a system.
So that's the electrical engineer part of you that's trying to scope business as another system.
Yeah. And then that's in engineering, the engineering big thing in engineering, especially in control, is feedback, right? Feedback control is a big thing. But the feedback control is always you try to stabilize the system, right? But I said, well, if you look at a business, actually, you don't want to be stabilizing a system. You want to be unstabilizing a system because you want to grow, right? Grow is not stabilizing. So what I'm saying that actually in business, what you need is not negative feedback, you need positive feedback. So that's a whole concept of where they come in. So what is a positive feedback, right? A positive feedback is something that excites you, and then you have something supporting you, and then you create a exponential growth. That's where from the sort of a engineering point of view, right?
And so I'm very curious about this, the grabber holder dynamics, which we've talked about extensively over the past 10 weeks.
Right.
And I think it's fascinating how it defines so much of also what we're seeing now. COVID has taken over, and a lot of what I'm seeing now in the way that companies are approaching this and a lot of the innovations that are coming about, I keep trying to classify them. How are they strategizing and positioning themselves within these grabber holder dynamics? So could you give us a slight introduction into what is this dynamic that is now so popular?
Right. So how do you create a positive dynamic, right? To be able to cause a dynamic from the engineering term is that you are creating an eigenvalue that's positive in some way. So it's from the mathematical point of view. But then how do you translate it into the business point of view? Right. I say it must be something that sort of didn't let you fall down, right? If something that let you fall down. So what you want to do is that your business, you're going to grab it, you're going to excite it in a certain way, and then you're going to find something to hold it, and that's how the grab and holding come along. And one of the disruption is that there are forces that sort of creating forces that can kick you in a certain direction, right? It's a huge force. So what you can do using a grabber holder dynamics, so you can think of all those forces like grabber, right? They're actually pushing you to a certain direction, but it will not stay there, because when the forces go away, you'll fall down. But if you can hold it, then you create a new situation. So I'm saying, for example, if you take the COVID situation, I would say the COVID situation actually are sort of a kick you in a certain way, so that you shifted your preference, you shifted your way of what is the right way of doing things. And sometimes it may allow you to create a different kind of value structure. For example, a lot of people find that because of this COVID-19, right? People actually find new value in family. They revisit the value of family. They revisit the value of community.
Right.
Which they have lost, They're too busy, they lost it. Now they have something, but then in order for that to sustain, that means that if you can have something that hold it, then it become, even that the COVID-19 is gone, you still have this value sustaining. So the question is, what are those things you need to build up so that you can support it, right?
But what you're saying is that the grabber the way that the grabbing works is it's sort of like a kick in the stomach, and okay, we're shifting the consumer behavior in one way, whether it's an invention or if it's a global pandemic.
Exactly.
And now we've attained this new behavior. We've shifted, the consumers have shifted the mindset, the values, their desires, etc. Right. Now the question is, how do we hold or retain these values?
Retain that. So if you could not retain it, then we'll bounce it back.
Right. So a good case of this would be, so Zoom, for example, enjoyed a lot of this new type of consumer interaction. And a lot of people are wondering, now things are starting to open up again. Hopefully soon everything will open up. And are we retaining this consumer behavior of virtual conference?
So for example, if Zoom can do something to make you feel that even you're back to normal life, you still find new value in there. And then if I can build certain things that allow that's what I call the holder, right? So the holder is something you build afterwards, after you see where the grabber is pushing you. So building the holder is more like, you do it in time. It's not something that you can foresee. So you just have to play around. It's more adaptive. It's more, you have to build up as you go on. That's the whole concept, right?
So what are some examples of grabber holder dynamics that we can see over the past, half a century, for example?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, almost everything is sort of like you start have a grabber, and then you start having a holder. I'll give you a few sort of example, right? For example, take PC example. We talk about PC, right?
Yep.
PC is a typical grabber and holder dynamic concept, right? the idea is that I'm going to have a computer for everybody. This sounds a great idea. Okay, and certainly in the beginning, nobody know what does that mean, right? Just when they know what's a computer, right? They know a little bit about computer. They know the mainframe is do a lot of calculation, but it's too complicated, too big things, right? Too many things.
Right.
And if you ask them what is needed, and nobody knows, right? So in the very beginning, you see what the computer is. It's a little box. They can do a calculation, and then sometime when you turn off the electricity, everything is gone, right? That is, oh, wow, that's not good, right? So it's exciting. I can use that to make calculation, but all the calculation that I make is all gone. That's in the very beginning. The first PC doesn't have a memory.
Interesting.
Okay, so what they do? They attach a recorder, tape recorder, like the regular tape recorder attached to the PC so that you can record it. But then you have to search through, so it's very complicated, right? And that's why they go into disk drive, right? Disk drive comes in because they see a need that if I do all the computation, where I'm going to put it, right? We know that a big computer, they can do it. But
Right.
when you're a little box, you say personal computer, I'm so small, should I have it or not? Nobody know in the very beginning. So sort of try and error. So, and you may say that the first success of Apple II is because they attached to it with the disk drive.
Okay.
So
was that the holder perspective of it?
That's the holder perspective. No, you need a disk drive. People find you need a disk drive. Well, also you need to have some computational tool because you need a computer. No one is going to write a programming. And at that time, Apple II becomes successful is mainly because then the WordStar and VisiCalc comes in that allow you to do word processing, type a letter, and things like that. VisiCalc allow you to do simple, calculation and accounting, and that's when being successful. And that's the holder, right?
Definitely. Okay, so you have that example, and I'd love to talk also about retail, and that specifically I'm interested because that was my.
I'll give you another very interesting example, right?
Yeah, please.
Okay, the other interesting example is Alibaba.
Okay, yeah, very relevant. Yes.
Okay, now Alibaba started off. Alibaba started fooling around with the internet, but in the very beginning, they are helping American firm to source product in China. That's how they do it, right? It's more like a B2B, right? They're sourcing, they're helping you. Actually, they're not helping you to source it. You just go in and find information. Okay, you want to buy certain thing, I can tell you, who are the manufacturers.
Yep.
That's they started in the very beginning. Okay, keep it going along. Okay, and then Amazon started in U.S. and sort of the e-commerce started in U.S. and they are successful. And e-commerce and eBay, they all go to China, want to do it in China. The Alibaba said, "Well, I can do that too, right? It's sort of a similar thing, and maybe I should also set up something like this." Okay. But on the other hand, one of the things is that if you want to do e-commerce, right? So what is a holder?
What is the holder?
What's the holder, right? One is that why would people want to come to the computer to buy things? Is that a normal thing that people do?
Right.
No, the answer is no. Maybe some young kid would try
back then it wasn't, right?
Yeah, not at that time, right? Well, maybe some young kid would try it. Not only that, not everybody has a computer in China.
Right.
Okay, so when I said, where's the holder, right? So the holder is that you need to have a computer, you have someone who need to have a computer, right? But on the other hand, also what you need is that how are you going to pay? Okay?
Right.
And then the third is that how do I trust you? Why do I want to buy it in there? Because if I buy something is not useful, then what, right?
Yeah.
Now, in U.S., it becomes takeoff for several reasons. I think the holder is there. Okay, in U.S., how do you solve the problem of payment? Well, you can have, credit card. You can scan your credit card or whatever. Even though they have PayPal, but they started off with credit card, so people can pay credit card.
Right.
So that solved the problem of payment. Well, how do I trust it? Well, in U.S., they have the consumer protection. U.S. have very high consumer protection, so that if you don't like it, you can return it.
Yeah.
Okay, then you have to accept the return. Okay, So that means that in the US, the holder is there.
Right.
Okay.
But Professor, it sounds also that from a
but
lot
in
of
China, it's not there.
yeah, so it sounds that in order for a company like eBay or Amazon to become a holder of this new user experience, you need they were
They need to
helped by,
deal with the two problems, right?
and they didn't deal with them on their own. They had the government and the payment system deal with them for them, right? They didn't do this on their own.
But because that means that the US all have already the infrastructure,
right,
allow you to do it. And there's sometimes people have a term that in China, in developing countries, sometimes they give a term called institutional void. There's some institutional void, and that's exactly what happened in China. There's an institutional void in China. The credit card system, there's no credit ranking system.
Right.
There's no sort of credit assessment system. So therefore, you don't know. So there's not a lot of credit card you will send around. And most of the credit card they send around in China are all those very famous, millionaire, right?
Sure.
But young people, they will not have one, right?
Right.
But
so
all the rich people in China, they're not going to buy things on themselves, on their own. So then they're not the shopper. so they have the credit card, but they're not the shopper, right? The shopper are the one they didn't have the credit card.
So it sounds also when you talk about timing, how timing is important for a startup or for any entrepreneur.
Exactly. You have to know the situation over there, right? So the other thing,
there you go.
So the other thing is that this trust problem, right? Because in China, if you buy certain thing, if you don't like it, you cannot return it. Okay? People will not return it, and they will not accept it. And there's no law to protect you. Okay? So you cannot sue them or whatever. You cannot do that. So therefore, how do you solve that problem? Okay? And this is how, Alibaba becomes successful.
So how do they solve it?
How do they solve it? Okay, the way they solve it is say, we're going to set up something called like an escrow system. Like US, they have the escrow system. Well, the escrow system is that you buy certain thing, right? A certain amount you pay into Alibaba. Okay, Alibaba is going to be like an escrow. They're going to hold it. They're not going to release it to the seller, and then they tell the seller that the buyer have already paid, and you can ship it to him.
Right.
Okay, and they ship it to the buyer, and the buyer have 7 days to examine the thing. And within 7 days, they can return it to Alibaba, and Alibaba will ship it back to the seller and return the money back to the buyer. So that means that they are the middleman to keep track on that, right?
That's a lot of logistics to solve.
There's a lot of logistics to do, right? And not only that, they say no fee.
No fee.
No fee. So that means that if you return, it doesn't cost you anything.
Interesting. And I think that so that obviously is very. So on Amazon, it's different because you actually pay in advance. You already pay for the product, but you have so much trust in the system that you can just return it, right?
Two things. It's because in the credit card system, if you don't like it, you can complain to the credit card, and the credit card can rehold it.
But what is interesting is that
that's already set up in US, right?
Right, and then you have a platform like Upwork, which is for freelancers, where you actually keep the money in escrow. It's all virtual. There's no tangible services. It's all hypothetical work to be done. Like, please put in data. Like, do a research project for me. Not that I would ever do that for Stanford, of course. But then once I put the money in escrow, the freelancer can perform the work. And only once I'm satisfied, the money gets released, which leaves room for negotiation because it's so subjective on what are the goods and what are the quality of the goods.
This is exactly what's happening, right? So this is exactly what Alibaba did. But I think the interesting part, what they did, is that I charge it free. Then you say, where do they make the money? Here's the interesting part. The 7th day where the money is in Alibaba, he would put it into the money market and earn some interest. And that's how they pay for it. Now, this is in a gray area, right? Because it's not your money.
Right.
Yeah, it's not your money, right? But then if you have a lot of money coming in, then you can become a pal. But then they very quickly shift into set up another thing called, an extra money account. That means that I can put money in there, and the money would be used for helping you, would make the interest for you, and they keep a little bit. And then every time you buy things, you can use that money. So they solve the problem very quickly after a while. So they use a gray area to move in, okay? So that's the part they solve that holder. But there's another great holder is very important, is why would people buy things on the internet? Okay, now it turns out if you look at the timing, it turns out they start taking off in year 2003.
Okay.
What is the significance of that? In year 2003, SARS appeared in China, like the COVID-19. Because of SARS, many places are in lockdown, especially in Beijing.
Accelerate technology into everything.
And then now people still have to buy things. What do? They go to the internet.
I love it.
Okay. Now, whether without that will happen or not, I don't know, because history didn't tell us. I mean, I cannot run back to history, but I can say that has something to do with it because it helped to change people's preference in buying. So I'm saying that's why I'm talking to you guys that in COVID-19 we have a lot of things going to happen. If you learn from the Alibaba example, that means that there are new things going to open up if you can see what it's leading to. And that's another company called JD. It's actually that company, JD, it started off is that he is only he have a retail store selling electronic equipment in Beijing. And because of SARS, he actually moved it into the internet.
No,
that means that there's certainly something that happening there. And JD is now one of the largest e-commerce in China now.
It's unbelievable. And Jack Ma's story, aside from all of that, is just, so phenomenal by itself. And I think what's really, really incredible and very reflective on what we've done over this past 10 weeks, it's understanding how dynamic this world is and how as an entrepreneur, you could have an amazing idea with amazing execution, but if you're not dynamic and if you're not thinking about market forces and how everything is changing, then you're not setting yourself up for success. And especially today with things changing so fast, I just heard a podcast that Instacart, the grocery shopping application, they've reached their financial milestone that they predicted for 2024. Now, you would think that in 2020, with so many smart people working on this billion-dollar company, they'd be able to predict their sales over years. And it just shows how, something happens to the world, the markets shift, consumers shift. Who would have guessed that they would have had, 3-year or 4 years advancement in just, a matter of weeks. I can't believe our time is almost up. And Professor, I know you have to go to your next meeting already, but I have to leave with one last question. 3 words that you would best describe yourself or any of your colleagues at Stanford would describe you as.
Well, I don't know. I think
the hardest question.
Hardest questions, right? I think that I would like to, my interest, my desire is to, 3 things, right? I feel that entrepreneur is culturally dependent. Okay, in different parts of the world, you have a different kind of entrepreneurial activity, a different kind of innovation. Because the innovation are culturally dependent. So that means that whatever, and each part of the world with their cultural background, they have actually different competitive advantage in deriving certain type of innovation. And so I believe that people should collaborate, worldwide collaboration and innovation, and take the part in each part. And the whole idea, innovation is creating value to the world. So maybe I would like to describe me as like to promote creation. I like to promote global innovation to increase the well-being, the livelihood of everybody in the world.
I love it so much, Professor. Thank you so much for your time and inspiration.
I think it'll take more than 3 words.
I'll take it because it was just too inspiring. Professor, thank you for the last 10
minutes.
Okay,
great.
Thank you for teaching us all about dynamic entrepreneurial strategy, and I look forward to taking more classes with you.
Okay, great. I'll see you.
Take
See you.
care.
Bye. Bye.